All right, I just wanted to put together a little video on PowerPoint to go over a little bit about the persuasive essay to help you with your assignment for this week. So first, when we talk about forms of persuasive writing, persuasive essays use logic, reason, and emotion to convince readers to join the writer in a certain point of view. So this isn't just sharing your opinion, you're sharing your opinion in an effort to persuade your reader to agree with you. So we want to keep that in mind. This is basically the whole point of the persuasive essay. It's to convince your reader to agree with your opinion. It's a really good idea in the organization of your essay to start with a lead or a hook, something that captures the reader's attention, and then in that introduction to bring your thesis statement around. So if I am talking about volunteering and I think everyone needs to volunteer more, I might start with a very short story about volunteering, or I might start with a very short story that illustrates a need, how many pet shelters are overrun and that we need more pet foster parents, and it'll lead into that. And then the thesis statement is your assertion. You need to have that one statement that says what your opinion is. Just as a note on how to improve your writing, if you refrain from using the phrase, I think that, or in my opinion, that adds wordiness to your writing and it takes away from the impact of your statement. Whatever's coming after I think that's going to be a complete sentence. So if you say, I think that we should all volunteer more, we can take the I think that out and have a more impactful, better written sentence just by saying we should volunteer more. Then after we have that introductory paragraph, you're going to have the body of your essay, which should present your supporting arguments. So in that introduction, we're going to introduce what our points are, but in the rest of the body, we will now present what they are. Something to keep in mind, if you have 3 reasons, like we all need to volunteer more because it makes us better people, there's a great need, and it'll make society better. If those are our 3 points, the way we list them in our introduction is the way we need to talk about them in our paper. That order needs to stay the same. So we'll have our supporting arguments, the logos, pathos, ethos. That's going to talk about the type of argument in the rhetoric triangle. I'll talk about that a little bit more. That will help convince the reader that your thesis is correct. You might also include counter arguments to respond to concerns or objections. So sometimes to make your essay more persuasive, it's a good idea to present what the arguments against your opinion are so that you can bust them down in your paper. And then at the end, you'll have a conclusion, and that'll restate the sentence, come back to that main point. Basically, the format is, here's what I'm going to say, introduction. Body of the paper is, here is me saying it. And the conclusion is, here's what I just said. So that's just a format we want to follow. So when we look at this, we have a lead or a hook that'll grab the reader's attention. So you can start with an anecdote, that's a narrative vignette or a little short story. Keep in mind the length of your paper. This is a short paper. It should have a short story at the beginning if you choose to use this as a hook. You don't have to, but if you go this way, make sure that the hook is short in that story. If not, it's sort of like if you've ever been to the movies and the previews go on so long you forget what movie you're watching. So if that narrative hook that you've started with to grab the attention, if that story gets too long, we forget the point of the paper and we don't have enough time to do that. So there's an example one there. You might also start with a question, although those are a little hard and a little overdone, but you can say, do schools have the right to tell kids how to dress? That'll grab people's attention. They'll have an opinion. They'll start thinking about whether or not they think that's good, and that'll help lead you to what your opinion is. Your thesis statement will still be it is absolutely important that they have that, or whatever. Hyperbole is another way that you can create a hook. For the past 300 years in this country, schools have been crushing the artistic freedom of students with oppressive dress codes by going extreme and making an example there. Their setting, you can use that as a hook. Litter of phrases, you can see that timeless, tasteful, tried and true. That alliteration brings people in. It's interesting. You can also start with a quotation from somebody. You just want to make sure they're a credible person, someone you know, someone you can have that will help support that. So that hook is a good way to grab people's attention. So then we go into the thesis, and they call it the thesis and forecast, or the thesis and essay map. A thesis statement is always one sentence that states your assertion or belief about the topic. So after we have that hook, we need to make that statement. It's going to include a little bit of a brief argument. So there we have the I believe, you'll see, is in parentheses because we don't actually want you to include that in the paper, but the information that follows it is what you believe. So you will say people need to donate more of their time to volunteering because of argument 1, argument 2, and argument 3. So those are your 3 points you're going to make. And that'll be your introduction. So when you see that structure that it has right here, you have the introduction, argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, and then the conclusion. Your arguments are listed in that one sentence like we saw because of in your introduction. They will be referred to again in your conclusion, and they'll be presented in the body. In that second paragraph, we talk about argument 1 and only argument 1. Or that second section. And when we get to the argument 2 section in those paragraphs, you're going to talk about argument 2 and only argument 2. And when you get to the third section, argument 3 and only argument 3, and then in conclusion, you'll list them again in that order. So this is just another way of setting up your outline according to this as well. Just a couple of notes of what your argument is, some of the points you want to make, and that'll just, you can see what this is a sample outline where it says argument 1, and you'd write it in that top section, and then support, 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 the reasons why that's a good argument you'll list there, and then you can turn that into a paper. So here's just a little practice. You can look at this. Which of these is a good thesis statement? I believe we must stop wasting food now. The problem of food waste can easily be resolved by implementing 3 simple steps: reduce, reuse, recycle. If you aren't reducing, reusing, and recycling, you should. I believe wasting food is a huge problem. We need to reduce our food waste. For example, make a shopping list before you go to the store and only buy things you truly need. You shouldn't buy a gallon of milk if you're only going to drink a quart of it during the week. Who cares if the gallon size is on sale? So when we look at this, we have a lot of different ways of making this statement. Some of them, the point of view changes a little bit. When we look at these, it should be the forecast should be a concise preview. The full argument and supporting details go in the body paragraphs, not in the introduction. That's why the last one's not very strong. Really, the strongest one here, as far as a thesis statement, is the second one, because it's concise, it's direct, it's not told in first person, and it even has some of that alliteration in there as well. So when we look at those supporting arguments, we want to have what we call the rhetoric triangle. That's how we persuade people, with the use of logos, ethos, and pathos. Logos is talking about logical appeal. It's talking about evidence. What are you using to prove your point? Does it make sense? Does your evidence actually support your claim? Those kinds of things. Ethos is the ethical appeal. And it's not just, is the proposal the right thing to do? It's also, what's the credibility of the author? Do they have the right to say that? Is their evidence have credibility? Is it something about them that makes them a credible speaker? And then the pathos is the emotional appeal. Will accepting the author's proposal make me feel better? Or do we use fear to motivate as an emotion? Do we use happiness to motivate as an emotion? So all of these things, credibility, evidence, and emotion, can really help with your argument. So here's an example. We have an appeal to logic. Call your doctor today to see if Restasis is right for you. Logic is anytime we use evidence. Expert testimony is evidence. Statistical information is evidence. Anything that suggests that this is a logical thing to do, it's the right thing to do, the evidence says we need to do this. In ethos, it's not just is it the right thing to do, it's really, does this person have the credibility to be telling me what to do? Is this evidence credible? That's what we're looking at there. And then a pathos is the appeal to emotion. And you can see here, lives are saved. They want to help the puppies. You make them feel something and it helps persuade them. So not all emotional arguments are sad, like the puppy one or the starving children you see in the children's fund or donate money ads you see on television. So this is an emotional appeal. More flags, more fun. This is fun. It makes you young. It makes you happy. Go to Six Flags. Hayden Panettiere, that's also, it'll make you included, it'll be happy, it'll be fun. This is a celebrity endorsement. It's kind of a faulty credibility, but it'll make people feel like they belong and you can be cool and all the great kids are drinking milk. So that's an emotional appeal as well. When you look at counter arguments in your paper, they address your reader's objections, and it's one of the best ways to sort of take the wind out of the sails of the opposing argument is to present it and defeat it there. So we see oil companies should not be allowed to drill for oil in Alaska. So if you're pro that, you might present what the opposing viewpoint is and then explain why that's not actually a really good viewpoint. You don't have to do that part, but it is a way that can. So when we look at the conclusion, we want to revisit the thesis, revisit our commentary or that essay map. It's not merely copy and pasting or changing a few words, but we do want to revisit that again. And it kind of brings it all back around, reiterating your point and what you think needs to happen from that point. So we see a couple of here from some speeches. And so, and this is from Martin Luther King Jr. So when you look at this one here on the right, and when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. And that reiterates his point, that I have a dream that we can live together and we can have this freedom, and it has a lot of the same words, and it brings it all back around to the main point and then hits that main point again so that the reader is leaving with a really strong idea of what it is you were trying to say. They don't have to reference back up to the front to remember what your opinion is because you've restated it in the conclusion again. So again, we revisit the structure of the persuasive essay. We have our introduction that has our hook to get the reader's attention, our clearly stated thesis statement of what your claim or belief is, and then the list of your evidences, your evidence 1, evidence 2, evidence 3, or argument 1, argument 2, argument 3. And then we go all into argument 1 and all of your supporting details and reasons and evidence that proves argument 1. And then your section on argument 2 and all of your evidence and supporting details and information that supports argument 2. And then argument 3 and all your evidence and supporting details and everything that supports argument 3. And then your conclusion and commentary that goes back to your main point, that reiterates the importance of your arguments, and that closes with that call to action or claim that tells your reader, and this is what I want you to do with this information. This is the why I wrote it. This is why this information is important. And it gives the reader a sense of closure, that the essay is ended with you proving your point and you telling them what to do about it at the end. So remember, as you're writing, to keep in mind both your audience and your purpose, because you are writing to a generalized audience that you're trying to convince to agree with you. So when you're writing persuasively, always remember there is this commentary between you and your audience. You are trying to persuade your reader. Maybe they're enthusiastic, maybe they're resistant, maybe they're disinterested, maybe they don't know anything about your topic, maybe there's someone who already volunteers and you want them to do more. Whatever it is, keep that in mind, because the words you choose and the arguments you choose will be informed by who your audience is. It needs to be organized, but it needs to hook the reader, bring them in and help them feel that they are engaged. They want to do what you're asking them to do. They are persuaded to your opinion. So that's what you want to keep in mind, that you have that audience, you have organization, that you have good solid argument that's put together well, because organization and solid arguments will really be what persuades people to your side. You shouldn't make them work really hard for it, because they're going to agree more easily with something that's clear and organized and proven with evidence. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. It's really great. And I look forward to reading your papers.